Hello, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. My name is Elena Vernon. I am starting live tonight. I'm super excited, you guys. A lot of you have already submitted questions. We have a special guest in the room tonight. I'm super excited because this means we're gonna be able to pick the brains of an AP reader. I'm super excited. And this particular AP reader is a little more, it's just a little more exciting. I'm going to let him introduce himself. Let's even get him into the room. I'm just going to invite, there we go. Everyone, thank you for coming. Christian, Zeri, Heartful, hello, Iris. It's so good to see you guys and to be live again. I'm excited. There's already electricity in the room. So tonight, for those of you just like jumping on and you have no idea what's going on, we are going to be going live with a real AP reader. I'm just really excited. Garden of English is his handle. His name is Mr. Tim Freitas. I'm all sorts of excited. So welcome him on with as many hearts, with as many hand claps, your favorite emojis, etc., so he can feel nice and welcomed. I'm accepting his invite. I just accepted. Let's see if it works. Hopefully I don't have to like redo the live. That would not be fun. It says that you're unable to join. All right, so I'm gonna stall because that's what a good host does. Anyway, my name is Elena Vernon. I am your hostess tonight for our Q&A. Guys, if you are taking AP English language or you have any questions, hi.
Hello. Hi, I hope you're well.
Look at all the love that you're getting.
I can't even see it, to be honest with you. This is not something I do very often.
That's okay. I'm gonna soft pitch some questions for you tonight.
That's okay.
All right, guys.
That's okay.
If you have questions, drop them in the chat. But if you want me to catch them, make sure you drop them in the little question bubble that you see at the bottom. Welcome. Okay, so I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about yourself and what makes you special as an AP reader.
Gotcha. Well, hey, I'm really thankful that you invited me to be on here to answer some questions or, hopefully ease some qualms of some students. But yeah, my name's Tim Freitas, and I am an AP English teacher, AP English Language, AP English Lit, Honors English, Theology teacher at Whitensville Christian School in Whitensville, Massachusetts. I also run the junior research program over there. I also co-authored the AMSCO textbook for their AP edition for AP Lang. And I am a College Board consultant. But on top of that, or I should say an endorsed College Board consultant. And so on top of that, though, I am an AP reader. And not only that, but I'm also an early table leader. So I kind of oversee some other readers, and we make sure we're calibrated and things like that. And I get to see what it's like to pick out scores and say, here's what a 141 looks like, here's what a 140 looks like, and things like that. And so I am happy to be here tonight to answer some questions. Oh, by the way, I also run the Garden of English. I totally forgot about that. So if y'all haven't checked out the Garden of English, you got to check out the Garden of English. You can do that at YouTube. Yeah, you can do that at YouTube. We get tons of free stuff there. We do have an Instagram page, but YouTube is where you're going to get way more content. And then the Garden of English also has an ultimate review packet. So if you guys are crunching for the last 3 or 4 weeks before the exam and you're like, crud, I need an extensive review, check out the Garden of English Ultimate Review Packet. Maybe I can put a link in the description a little bit later for that, but it's the best review that you can get. I can promise that. And it's all video, so you don't have to, well, I shouldn't say it's all video. There's a little reading to do, but it can give you all you need for your review. But anyway, that's me.
It's English, so like some reading is required, right?
Yeah, of course, always, right? I'm just saying it's not like a textbook. So we've got a bunch of videos, and there are notes that, guided notes that go with it, and multiple choice with rationales and a practice test, and there are videos for every unit that explain all the content you need to know to make sure you can get a qualifying score in your AP exam.
Man, like, where were you when I was in high school? Man, I needed this. I needed it so bad.
I don't even know where I was when I was in high school. So, I'm just kidding. I was in Oxford, Massachusetts. But yeah.
All right, well, let's get started. So we have some
Yep.
really good questions tonight, and I'm just really excited for the kids to hear from you because this is a perspective. We hear from our AP teachers like all year long as students, right? But hardly ever do we get to speak to, unless our teacher is also an AP grader.
Yeah.
We don't really get to speak to a reader. So this first one is really interesting. Do you grade differently as you get more tired of reading responses?
No. No. One of the reasons why for me is because with sample selection, when we're taking samples of what sample papers look like so everybody else can calibrate, I've already been doing the reading for a week, so I'm already exhausted. And so, when most readers are coming in nice and fresh, I'm at the end of the week. I mean, I'm at the beginning of my second week, and I'm like, oh, whew, okay. But well, please note that we are actually told consistently that, even if we are tired, we need to treat every paper as if it's the first one that we've read. And the reason why is because although it might be the 1500th paper that we've read, the students didn't write 1500 essays. This is the third essay that they wrote, or maybe the first. And so we are encouraged to really push that forward. On top of that, we have different ways to keep our energy up. A lot of it involves some candy. There's a lot of sugar that gets passed around and whatnot.
I was going to
But
ask,
no,
how
we
many
really.
cups of coffee does it take to grade those essays?
Well, so I'm not a coffee drinker. So for me, it's like I gotta get my seltzer out there, or I gotta get my water out there. But some people are, some people have the coffee IV in,
Yeah.
and it's like, they just surpass, they go past the mouth. It's just straight into the veins there to keep that, you cut someone like that open and they'll bleed coffee all out because they're just trying to make sure they've got that energy.
Yes.
Um,
I've heard a joke that like an acceptable amount of coffee, like I think 42 is the limit. So 41 is, I hear that 41 is still good.
There we go. Now I know. But another thing too, and this is going to sound really kind of weird, and this is just a little background story, is a lot of times in the reading room, it's like cold, not like purposefully cold, but for some reason, I've got this conspiracy theory in my mind that the powers that be know that the most efficient reading happens at like 46 degrees, so they keep it like 46. And of course, it's not really 46, but it's a little bit chilly. So a lot of times you just have to have a sweatshirt or a blanket. But I'm wondering if that's one of those ways that keeps us like going. But we're not uncomfortable, we're not tortured or anything like that. But no, it's actually throughout the week, and I'm sorry for rambling on about this, but throughout the week, um, as you go on, I actually think that scoring becomes easier, and so therefore it's a little bit less tiring. You just have to make it through.
Yeah.
Just make it through.
Just like hit your
Another thing.
stride and then you can get it.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is like you can kind of see how many you cover at a time, and you kind of want to you kind of have goals like, hey, I want to cover this many, but you also want to be accurate. And what's really nice about being a teacher is like I always think of what if this was my student's paper with another reader? How would I want another reader to read it? And that's one of those ways that really helps us, kind of make sure we give every paper the same fair shake.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I kind of like that. Like if you're a teacher, treat it like you would want, your own kids to have their
Yeah,
papers read. I love it. That's
yeah,
that's the bright sunshiny part of this for me.
yeah.
Speaking of bright sunshine, I know that you're coming down to Tampa, Florida to
You
read,
bet.
but what states are AP readers from?
Oh my word, they're not just from states, they are from all over.
Ooh.
And so sometimes I'll meet someone who's like, yeah, I just flew in from England last night. And so they come from all over the world.
Is it
Now,
intimidating speaking to someone from England about English writing?
of course, because even their accent makes me sound like I'm an idiot. Now I probably am, but nonetheless, right? You throw out that English accent, and now all of a sudden I'm smoked.
Right. You're like,
No,
adequate.
um, that's why I love Peppa Pig. I watch this kid show, and I'm like, oh, Peppa's smarter than I am. Now I know. But no, it's pretty awesome though to meet so many people. In fact, the person that I typically room with at the reading is from Hawaii, and I just met him at my table one year, and we became great friends. And now, obviously, Hawaii is still the United States, but that's a lot farther away than Massachusetts than just about any other state.
It is,
So,
but it's not the
um,
continental United States. I think it counts.
yeah, right, right.
Awesome. Okay, so this is specifically for an AP English language reader. That's you.
Yeah.
How do you recommend I structure the rhetorical analysis essay? Ooh, this one's hard. It's a
Oh, yeah.
question.
Well, sometimes I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place with that because the kid's going to go back to a teacher tomorrow and be like, I told you. Listen, do not have that conversation with your teacher if that's the case. But
Just like passive aggressively post a link.
Yeah, right. But the truth be told, the best way to produce a rhetorical analysis is to go through chronologically. And so with my students, I tell them, when you write your first topic sentence, you're going to say the author begins by doing blank. And then their second topic sentence is going to be something along the lines of the author then shifts to, or the author then follows this with. Then their last topic sentence will say the author finishes by. So they'll always move chronologically. And the reason why is because most arguments are built throughout an entire reading. Now, there are some times when my students will be like, yeah, but let's say they do something twice in the piece, once in the beginning and once near the end, or maybe even 3 times, and I want to write about all that in one paragraph. Then I'll say, that's fine, but what I want you to do is I still want you to do a choice at the beginning, and then you say something like, throughout the whole piece, the author also blah, blah, blahs. And then at the end of the piece, the author. So you could still do like things that show up throughout the whole piece. But the chronology works because that helps to, as you write through, it shows that you can see each piece of the essay and how it contributes to the whole of what the purpose is. So I think it's actually most appropriate to write in a chronological order.
I love it. Okay, so we have one that's live. It just came in. So Justin asks, I can't get that last name, but Justin says, I think that's just Jan. What's the easiest way to get the complexity point on the rhetoric essay? Ooh.
Okay, so here's the deal. There is no complexity point on the AP Lang exam. There is a sophistication point. And the question itself is a bit contradictory because this is what's the easiest way to get, and I think that what you meant was the sophistication point. And that's okay. I'm assuming that you're taking AP US or an AP History as well. But here's the deal.
You can always tell the crossover students.
That's right. And so anyway, I'm just giving you a little bit of a hard time. I'm just being a half jerk, not a full jerk. I'm only half jerk, not full jerk. But anyway, for the complexity, now I'm saying it. For the sophistication point, I can't say that there's an easy way to do it because sophistication is something that's a little bit that is abstract. However, what I tell my students to do is what they want to focus on that they can easily change on their own, that they can internalize to be sophisticated, is to consistently think about their writing mechanics. So for me, on rhetorical analysis, my students will have a thesis that incorporates all elements of the rhetorical situation. And if anybody wants to know more about what that looks like, you can look at my thesis videos at Garden of English, on my Garden of English YouTube channel. If you just do the rhetorical analysis thesis, I've got 2 types of thesis statements. One of them is more sophisticated than the other, but they're both really strong. So a thesis that includes the entire rhetorical situation along with rhetorical choices. Then I have my kids produce topic sentences that always have the rhetorical choice, an ordering word, and why the author is doing it. So my students will have topic sentences that say, so-and-so begins by doing this in order to blank. Every topic sentence will have that part.
Yeah.
But what I teach them throughout the year is that they can switch that topic sentence around. So instead of always having author does this in order to this, they might take their second sentence and say, to do this, right, the author then blanks. And then the last one, they'll take the in order to, and instead of saying in order to highlight this, they might say highlighting blank, the author that concludes by blah, blah, blah. And so we've got that nice sentence variation. So now we've got a nice complex thesis, some really nice sentence variation in the topic sentences. And I have my kids really focus when they provide their evidence on seamlessly integrating their evidence. They don't just drop their quotes in.
Right.
They always intertwine it with their sentences. So you can't tell where their words end and the quotes begin. That right there, those are persuasive writing mechanics. And because you can get the sophistication point in one of the ways is a vivid and persuasive writing style. What that means is that just having really good mechanics can really contribute to that point. Now, does it guarantee that kids will get that point? No, but it's a good start. Mm-hmm. I also really teach my kids to write really awesome conclusion paragraphs. And you can see videos for those on the Garden of English YouTube channel as well. And I have 3 steps to write a really good conclusion. So if the kids already have really good mechanics, and then they write a conclusion that's not just a summary of the thesis, but it's a strong conclusion, and I call it leaving a glass slipper. You know, where it's like, this conclusion has something so insightful that reader wants to like chase you down across the country just to be like, tell me more. If you put all that together, that's how you're going to get a sophistication point. I love it. And so I know that's the political way of saying like, well, kind of, you can't maybe. That's the easiest way, but it's still, notice how complex it is. You got to think about your entire argument the whole way through, and even tossing a good conclusion on there.
Yeah, that sounds like the details are all in the planning. So guys, make sure you do really good planning. That is actually a great way to put it. Like any reader can understand is like the difference between something that's been planned and something you were like thinking as you were writing along.
Oh yeah. A lot of times what I tell my students is to take 7 to 8 minutes, write out a thesis and their topic sentences before they write their essay. And the reason why is because if the thesis is your argument and your topic sentences always have, you know, a reference to where the evidence is going to come from and a reference to the argument, you've already actually done all your thinking. And so now you just have to articulate the correlations of your thinking. So thesis and topic sentences, which is a total of 4 sentences, if you could produce that within 7 to 10 minutes, you're going to be able to write the rest of your paper probably within 25 minutes, no problem.
I love it. Chef's kiss. Beautiful. What are the biggest mistakes that you see on each type of essay, says Mia Cohn?
Okay. Here we go. All right, the first mistake that I typically see is when kids do not answer the prompt. So AP does not stand for agony and pain or anxiety and pressure. It actually stands for answer the prompt. So you got to do it. Okay. So that's number 1. Number 2, another really big mistake that I often see is a substitution of a simpler task. For example, for question 1, a lot of times kids will just summarize the sources. So they might have a student might have a thesis, but then he or she will say in the first topic sentence, the first body paragraph, source A says blah, blah, blah. And then it's a summary of source A. And then it will say source B says, and it's a summary of source B. And then source D says. That's not the task that you're being asked to do.
Right.
So that's the biggest mistake that I typically see. Not answering the prompt and then just summarizing the sources in synthesis.
Yeah.
For rhetorical analysis, this is the biggest thing that I typically see. In rhetorical analysis, kids will put a thesis, but I'm going to actually give 2 things for rhetorical analysis. Number 1, they won't give the purpose in the thesis. So kids will say something like the author uses A, B, C, and D in order to convey his or her message. Now, I tell my students don't use the word uses anyway, because I always tell them never use the word use unless you're telling people not to use or you're talking about female sheep. So, don't use the word use. But a lot of times when kids do this, they then say to convey his or her message. And that just tells me as a reader, oh, you don't really know what his or her message is yet. And so you want to get that message in your thesis. That's like the best tip I can give you, because it shows that you understood what you read.
Yeah.
The other thing about the rhetorical analysis, though, that I see happen a lot is when kids don't fully understand that task, they substitute the task of argument. So a few years ago, there was an article by Cesar Chavez on the AP exam, and I remember papers, and it was basically like, hey, nonviolence is the better way to protest. And kids all the time are like, and he's right, this is the best way to protest. And they're writing about like events that are happening in their hometown. And it's like, whoa. What's happening in your hometown right now?
Yeah.
We're not arguing that. We're trying to say, how does Cesar Chavez create meaning with the language that he used for the audience that he had? So that's that one. And then for argument, the biggest mistake for argument that kids do is they use hypothetical examples that are not precise. And so that's really, really important for kids to know. Your examples in argument After your topic sentence, which is the first sentence of your body paragraph, you want to describe your example in 3 to 5 sentences. If you didn't reach 3 sentences, it's probably not precise enough. If you go more than 5, though, that's way too long. Now you're just summarizing evidence.
Yeah.
But precise examples too incorporate really strong verbs. So you really want to make sure that you focus on your verbs and your verb use that shows up in that.
Awesome. Oh, I love it. Very thorough answers. Okay, so we have another question from the live audience, as I call it.
Yeah, of course.
It's C. Marie 27. C. Marie says, skip the hook and go right into the thesis or write full intros? That is such a great question.
I think that's an awesome question. Now, this is one of those questions that kind of depends on who you talk to, okay? But I'm going to give you some advice that was given to me by someone who used to be the director of curriculum and instruction from the College Board. So, I mean, this guy was like... Yeah, right. Trusted advice. And I will tell you that this particular man is someone who has influenced a lot of my teaching. And although we have both co-authored competing textbooks, the day I got his textbook, I was like, I can't wait to get John to sign this. So just know I really, really like this guy a ton. And his advice has always been the best advice in my teaching practice, especially in my younger career. He's the one that convinced me to tell my kids to skip the intro to have only the thesis be the intro paragraph.
Wow.
And he told me the reason why. He said, Tim.
That's so controversial.
I know, right? He said to me, think about this. If someone is spending 2.5 to 3 minutes on a paper and making a judgment as to how this is functioning, when that happens, do you think that they're even going to fully remember the hook at the beginning? Well, first of all, I don't call it the hook. I call it the web, because at no point do I ever want a kid's paper to metaphorically be a sharp metal hook shoved through my cheek so it can drag me out of my natural habitat and then like watch me suffocate. You know, that's not how I want it to read. A web, at least if I'm going to be eaten, I'm going to be comfortable before I go, you know, if I get caught. But anyway, beside the point. He said to me, though, how many people are going to really fully remember that hook as opposed to remembering a really awesome conclusion? And that's why I teach my kids to write really good conclusions, because I'm like, look, if you're not going to spend your time adding to the intro paragraph, having something incredibly meaningful at the end, it's kind of like a strong thesis at the beginning. It's like you were to walk into a party and see a fly honey across the room and give that person like a wink, you know? And then you talk to that person a little bit, and then you're like, oh, crud, I'm going to turn into a pumpkin. So when you leave that glass slipper. The glass slipper is what they remember, not the wink to begin with. That started the conversation, but the glass slipper is what's left.
It's the mic drop. Yeah.
That's exactly it. So anyway, the other thing too is that advice was given to me before the change to the new scoring rubric of 6 points. But it still works really well with the new scoring rubric, because the most points that you're going to get are from your thesis and your evidence and commentary. So for me, why waste all that time with an intro when just your thesis can be your intro? Because you're going to get the 1 point for your thesis, and then evidence and commentary shows up in your body paragraphs. So I do tell my students, though, to skip 3 lines. And if they get to the end of writing their essays and they have 5 minutes left, if they can't add to a full body paragraph, or if they can't add a really strong conclusion, they can then go back and try to write a little intro in there. But I suggest just the thesis for the intro paragraph and spend that time on a body paragraph or a conclusion.
Wow.
As long as it's a good one.
Okay. All right. So moral of the story, great thesis, strong conclusion.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're in better shape if you do it that way.
It's going awesome. And not just because you have a neon pink flamingo behind you.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure you probably know this, but this is like the mascot of AP teachers.
I didn't know.
Did you know that?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So
I just thought it was like the Florida thing.
Well, it's actually from an essay that was on in the exam in the earlier 2000s called "The Plastic Pink Flamingo: A Natural History."
I do remember this mentioning. Okay.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Now I have to go dive into that Easter egg.
Oh, you got to go. The essay is my most favorite reading they've ever put on the AP exam. I love it. I adore it.
That's awesome. I definitely that. Okay, so we maybe have time for 2 more questions, so I want to squeeze these in.
Well, just so you know, I'm free to go. I'm free to stay for as long as you want, as long as you need me. Just a heads up.
Thank you. Thank you. In your eyes as an AP teacher, what makes an awesome conclusion truly awesome?
Okay, couple things. When you do it, so I'm gonna say it for all three types of essays. Number one, when I do synthesis, if a kid can bring him or herself into the synthesis paper, especially in the conclusion, I think that's incredibly moving, because what happens is it shows that the kid could say, and this relates to my life. Mm. And if the kid can leave me with something, with like a really universal something, it's just so incredibly impactful. I remember one time I gave a synthesis paper about the meaning of a holiday season. And the student at the very end, after talking about how the holiday season means family, mm-hmm. she got to the end and she told a story about her grandmother and an ornament that her grandmother gave her. Mm-hmm. And she said, and I remembered when looking at that ornament, though grandma wasn't here this year, that I still had every memory cherished in just that one ornament, and I could reflect on that every year. Boom. I was practically bawling my eyes out, you know? Right. And it means something. Now, sometimes prompts don't really lend themselves too well to that, right? Mm-hmm. But I remember one kid talking about how her mom got sick in Is College Worth the Cost essay. And she was like, she tells her whole story of how her mom got sick, but she also told her story about how her dad made a lot of money and didn't have a college degree, and her mom got sick and did have a college degree. And at the very end of her paper, she said, degree or not, the sickness doesn't care. Mm. And it was like, wow, what an impactful universal moment there. So that's something that's a real kicker for a mic drop there on synthesis.
Yeah, and that's
so personal experience
for something that we've just gone through. Like, there is no discrepancy there. The virus doesn't care.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything like that. Mm-hmm. As long as it can be on topic. And sometimes the topics are harder to do, like eminent domain, unless you have, the local city coming in to wipe out your house for a Walmart, maybe that's not as hard. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's not as easy. Yeah. But if people want more examples, I have a video about that on YouTube. For rhetorical analysis, what really sticks out is when people take the message of the rhetorician that's on the exam and they make it universal to this current day. Mm-hmm. So what that means is they say, look, here's the purpose and the message of this person. In a more contemporary sense, this is really important in that. And then in the very last sentence, if you could put a little quote from the reading in, mm-hmm. like intertwine it to convey that universal message, delightful. That is the chef's kiss right there. And there are YouTube videos for that as well on the Garden of English. And then for the argument essay, the best way to do it is to just make your entire, think about your essay as like this. All my body paragraphs are what I want my audience to understand. My conclusion is giving them a practical way for everybody to go do it. And if you can leave that there, that's going to be a meaningful argument conclusion.
I like it. I hadn't thought of it that way. That's excellent framing. Okay, so this kind of piggybacks off of the last question, so I feel like it's part B.
Yeah.
In the synthesis essay, in the conclusion, is it okay to use personal pronouns when talking about a personal experience? And that is Jaya.
All right, so this is something that kids misunderstand all the time. When your teachers tell you that not to use personal pronouns, mm-hmm. okay? The number one rule that I do give kids is to not use second person pronouns, which is the word you. The reason why is because that suggests that you don't know who the audience is. Mm. But when you say, instead of you, if you're talking about that universal you, I want to know who the universal you is. Is it Americans? Is it the upper middle class? Is it the lower class?
Can't be whom it may concern.
Right. You really want to be specific with who you're talking to in relation to your audience. If you just say you, that suggests that you don't know, and that's immature writing. However, when it comes to first-person pronouns, if you're telling a story about yourself, of course you have to use first-person pronouns. And if someone else is involved, you need to say we and my and our. What your teachers don't want when they say don't use first-person pronouns is they don't want you to say, I think, in my opinion, I believe. And the reason why is because your name is on the paper. Of course we know this is what you're thinking. That's now superfluous, and we just want to get rid of that writing. So that's what it means when your teacher's saying, hey, don't use personal pronouns. If you're telling a story about yourself, just think about it. If you talk to other people and you talk in third person, you're considered like a weirdo. Yeah, of course. So don't do that on your AP exam either. You can definitely use first person pronouns,
Right.
and collective first person pronouns, just
Otherwise,
not
you
second
sound
person.
like a narcissist.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, Tim Freitas doesn't do that, right? Oh, that's so ridiculous.
Okay.
I think there was a Seinfeld episode like that.
I think that's so funny. It does ring a bell slightly. Would personal examples serve as good evidence in all three essays?
All right. Personal examples are not going to work in rhetorical analysis. You do not want to bring that. You do not want to bring personal examples in rhetorical analysis. I tell my students that if they can on synthesis without having to force it, bring in a personal example in the conclusion, it's fine. Some kids I've seen do it in body paragraphs, and it works out really well. If anybody wants an example of that, I think you can look at the Ed Tech essays from, I think it's 2009, if I remember correctly. But if you just do a Google search and say Ed Tech synthesis sample responses, you can get them for free on the internet. And one of the higher scoring papers definitely has, he explains how technology works in his science class. And he brings himself in.
Well, I mean, but you
so
gotta stay on topic. That's the key. He had like a really excellent example that fit the bill. It wasn't like trying to shove it into the wrong size shoe. It already fit.
Right. And the reason why I tell kids to do that is because that gives an argument a face, right? Like if I was trying to raise money for some charitable organization and I was like, hey folks, I'm raising money for charity. And let's say it's like a charity for little kids. I have some students that would probably donate. Mm-hmm. But what if I brought a little kid in and was like, here's Billy Joe and he wants, a new pair of shoes or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they see his face and they realize that he's a human. That gives a much more personal appeal. And that's not unethical because he does need shoes or whatever the charity might be. I don't know, right? Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, giving the argument a face. If you're arguing this whole argument and then you say, and by the way, I'm a human being that experiences this too. Here's the universal implications of this. You've now taken a logical argument, added the emotion, and that's going to be even more powerful.
Yeah.
So that's why I do it that way.
That makes sense.
And then for the argument essay, always think about using yourself as an example. A lot of prompts almost like are layups for that. So that's something that you want to think about too. And at that point, I wouldn't save yourself to the conclusion. You might want to consider using different examples from your own life in multiple paragraphs. The only advice I'm going to give, though, is this. If you use yourself as an example, you can't assume that everybody else has the same experience and that it will work out the same way.
No universal experiences. Okay.
Yeah. So just a heads up.
Okay, I like it. Oh, this one's a tough one. I don't even know how we're going to fit it in, but I think we have to. Okay, so
like I said, I've got plenty of time. Unless you're on a time crunch, I'm fine.
Okay, all right. So how are you evaluating my essays? It says unknown.
Okay.
Poster.
Yep. So here's what this looks like. We have a rubric that is publicly available. Every essay is scored on a 6-point rubric that has 3 different parts. Mm-hmm. You have a thesis point, which is worth 1 point. You have an evidence and commentary point, which is worth 4 points, or section, which is worth 4 points. Then you have a sophistication section, which is also worth 1 point. And what happens is we look at the paper and we say, okay, does the thesis answer the question? If the answer is yes, you get the thesis point. Even if it's a bad thesis, if it answers the question, you're going to get the point.
I love it.
So that point is given, I think, like 95% of the time or something like that. Now, evidence and commentary is we then read the rest of your paper and say, okay, does the evidence match the claims of the thesis? And do you actually explain how your evidence proves your claims? And however well you do that, you get up to 4 points. Okay. So 4 points is like, yeah, you do it really well. 3 is kind of like pretty well. Mm-hmm. 2 is you faltered a bit. And 1 is you may have substituted a different task. So even though you got the thesis, you're kind of, or you're just summarizing your evidence, you're not providing any commentary. A 0 is substituting the different task. My bad. Okay? And then you've got the sophistication point, which is, do kids delve into the complexity of the writing, or do they have really awesome mechanics, or can they contextualize why this argument is needed to be discussed right now? Mm-hmm. And so that's how we read it. And then what happens is there are some readers that come in before that look at this year's current essays, and they grab a stack, and we start reading them and we toss scores on them. And then we get together with other early readers and then we say, hey, we all agree that this is a 130, or we all agree this is a 120 or a 141. And then we write up commentary as to why we all felt like this was a 141 or a 130 or a 120. And that's what other readers calibrate on. So they get to see, hey, this is what a standard 140 looks like. And we have a huge spread of all of those scores so that people can see that there are different ways to write a 141. There are different ways to write a 130. And so people can just look at all of their sample essays and be like, oh, yeah, this essay that I'm reading right now looks a lot like that one. And that scored a 130, so I can be confident this is a 130.
Okay. Okay. Wow, that's such a cool and complex, yet also somehow simple way of grading. That was pretty
interesting. Yeah. The craziest thing about it, right, is that as readers practice, because you have to practice before you can get to live papers, right? So as you calibrate and as you practice, to watch people always like consistently score very similarly for different papers, it's kind of like, what is this voodoo here? You know, but it's cool to watch.
Yeah, it's got a method to everything. I don't want to say madness because it's definitely not.
No, yeah, I mean, sometimes I feel like it's madness because, you know, I mean, how many people are like, I can't wait to go read essays for 2 weeks, and yet for some reason every year I look forward to it. I don't know what my problem is.
Okay, so this one's actually a really good one too. These are really great questions, guys. I have to hand it to you. You guys really made the most of this session. Okay, so I'm probably gonna butcher your name. So I'm gonna go with your last name so I don't butcher your first name. How about that? Nemchik. What is the probability of getting a rhetorical analysis essay, argument, or synthesis essay?
Hold on. Let me say it again. What is it?
He's like, let me bring that up closer.
You're gonna get all those essays.
You're gonna get all of those. I felt like that was a trick question.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I understood it. Yeah. So please note, you are getting all 3 of those essays, and you have 2 hours and 15 minutes to write all 3.
Yep. So practice now. That's where I come in as prep teacher type guys. Practice now. If I could go back in time and talk to Elena before she took this test, I would say, girl, why are you not practicing the FRQs so that you have your timing down and you have your plan and you just execute each time?
Right. And don't forget, we got that ultimate review packet to help you all practice too. And I know that Marco's got a bunch of resources as well. And there are practice exams and practice prompts in there and whatnot. So, which I think is actually, I put that in the description somewhere.
You did. It's pinned. It's pinned. So they can.
Oh, gotcha.
Yep.
Oh, great. Super cool. Yeah. But anyway, so that's the truth. You're going to get all 3 of them. All right. I'm ready for more if you need.
Okay, so this is going to be our last question from Faith.
Okay.
Cool name. Do you recommend that we plan out each essay using the same planning structure, or should we plan the synthesis essay differently?
All right.
I love the hat drop.
Yeah. So that one's that question. I don't want to misunderstand the question. I guess that's the only problem that I have. So I don't know what you would necessarily do to plan out the synthesis differently, besides this, okay? When I have my students plan their essays, the first thing they have to do is they have to turn their prompts into a question. So if the question says something like, develop your position on what factors should be considered when building windmills in an area, my kids are going to turn that into a question and say, what factors need to be considered? So they know that they have to answer that in their thesis. But when my kids plan their essay, they're going to write their thesis and their topic sentences, or at least sketch out what they might look like. And they'll do that for all their papers. The only different thing that I do for synthesis with my students is I do have them think about the ideas that show up in the prompt, like idea words. So if you're writing about windmills, you're really talking about sustainability, energy conservation, and convenience. And so what happens is my kids will list out those ideas from the prompt, and as they read their sources, if a source relates to any one of those ideas, they're going to put it next to the idea word. And what that does is that allows them to see what sources talk about the same ideas, so they can then put them in conversation in their paragraphs. That's the only planning difference that I would suggest, though. So as you read, you could say, oh, hey, these sources relate about these ideas. So if I have If I've got a paragraph that I'm going to talk about, health benefits or sustainability benefits or something like that, oh, I know that A, B, and E are the sources that talk about that. That's the only difference that I would have. I think that planning the essay, quick thesis, quick look at what your topic sentences might be, and then off you go to write your essay. Just think about it beforehand. And like I said, I tell my kids 7 to 10 minutes of planning, and then boom, go in and write the paper.
That's it. It's all in the planning, guys. Can't say that enough. Okay, well, thank you so much, Tim. It's been fantastic. So much fun and so informative. Guys, check out the pinned comment with information on how to check out the Ultimate Review Packet, literally authored by this.
And unit one is completely free. So if you just want some practice, get in there, watch those videos. They've got guided notes, answered notes, and free multiple choice practice for you with rationales. It's all, you just got to sign up for the free version. Not a problem.
I was just going to ask, okay, guys, because we had a question about multiple choice questions. And I was like, that's kind of not on topic, but I kind of want to bring it in because it.
You know what? I can do multiple choice. I can answer a multiple choice question. I don't mind.
Yeah, guys, the best way to prepare for multiple choice questions, but this is like across the board, practice multiple choice questions. They want to know the tips for timing and managing timing. Again, practice.
Yeah, that's it. It comes down to how well prepared are you. Can I just toss in one more tip about multiple choice?
Sure.
Stuff?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
This last bonus tip, guys. Take notes.
I know. One last tip about multiple choice is this. Know what lead distractors look like. And so lead distractors are the answers that are meant to pull you away.
Yep.
And
they're the mind gold.
Yeah. There are 3 common traits. Now, this is not anything dogmatic from the College Board or anything. These are just patterns that I've noticed over the years. I actually did a video about this with Marco's practice test because Marco did the same stuff. And I don't even know if y'all knew that you were doing it in your practice test. But here's what they are. Number 1, the first type of lead distractor is when you narrow it down to 2 answers, you know that one answer is true. And then there's another answer that has truth in it, but there's something that's false. The problem is, though, is that because a lot of times kids aren't confident in their reading comprehension, they're like, oh, where did I miss that? No, you didn't miss it. That's actually false. Go with the answer that's fully true.
Yep. Half
the
wrong
next type,
is all wrong, honestly.
That's right. That is so right.
I'm like, I don't care that it says that this woman is the Queen of England, and I don't care that that's true. If that next part is false, it's gone. I don't care how much.
You got it. So the next one is extra sneaky because the next one, sometimes both answers that you've narrowed it down to are true. You're like, I can see that in the text and I can see that in the text. However, one of those answers does not correlate with the question stem. So you need to really think about what is this question actually asking. So when you're like, all right, that does exist in the piece and I can prove it, but it doesn't relate to that question. So you can narrow that out and you can know that the last answer is correct.
Yep. That's it.
And the last version is that because you're looking for the best answer, sometimes they'll give a vague answer that has a more precise answer later. Mm-hmm. And so what I mean by that is this. If someone says, Tim relies most heavily on what as he does most of his presentations, one answer might say a pathetic appeal, but another answer might be engaging jokes. Well, jokes make people laugh, so that is pathetic, but jokes are much more specific. So the more specific answer is the better answer, even if there is another correct answer that's just a little bit more vague. So that's the last tip that I have.
I feel like those are the most unfair type of questions because I'm like, honestly, correct or more correct. But you're right by saying choose the best answer.
That's right. That's right. And I think that honestly, of all of them, that one shows up the least. But I definitely have still seen it consistently enough for me to be like, hey, look at these are the 3 kind of elements of the lead distractor there.
There you go. I love it. Thank you so much. You guys got a little bonus. And shout out to Apes versus everybody because he's in the room with us. Hi.
Hey. We should have invited him on.
Right. Well, different session because otherwise we're going to be bombarded with different questions. But I'm so happy to have everybody. Guys, you guys were the best audience. Thank you for kicking off the first night of our asking our AP readers live Q&A. I absolutely loved it. Guys, it is going to be posted. Make sure you check it out. Make sure you check out the pinned comment. It's got the ultimate review packet, everything you want to know from yours truly, Tim Freitas, or as we know him here, the Garden of English. Make sure you check out his YouTube channel. You can also check out Marco YouTube channel. There's everything you need for AP posted, guys. Don't let yourself flop by not checking out these resources.
You got it. And Jordan, it's nice to see you a bit. Are you doing one with Jordan right now?
Not right now. No, we're
All right.
We're planning and scheming, guys. Planning and scheming. We're gonna get so much value in the next 2 weeks. I'm just really excited. You guys, you're following. You're following directions. You're listening to these pros. You're gonna do great.
All right. You have a great night then, and I'll try to figure out how to get out of this thing. Or you can quit me. Whatever you're gonna do.
Bye, guys. Until next time.
All right, have a good one.